Welcome. This is my 149th rental car, and today I'm driving the 2020 Jeep Cherokee Limited. This is a full-size SUV that's pretty fun to drive, has some updated technology, and actually has a decent amount of storage, so there's plenty to talk about. And just to give you a quick roadmap on where we're going, first I'll give you the specs on this vehicle, and then we'll take it for a spin together and look at handling, acceleration, and cabin noise. Then we'll do a full tour of the interior and then close things out with a star rating 1 to 5, 1 of course being the worst. Alright, so let's start with the specs. This is the 2020 Jeep Cherokee Limited. Cherokee being the model. Don't get this confused with the Grand Cherokee, which is a larger version of a similar vehicle. And Limited is the trim level, and there's quite a bit on the Cherokee. So if you're interested in this vehicle, I'd highly recommend checking that out and making sure you pick the trim that's right for you. I actually like the Limited quite a bit. It's right in the middle of the pack, so you get a lot of good technology, good safety features, but the price is still pretty reasonable. And for this one, all spec'd out, it's $29,090, which isn't too bad for a brand SUV at this kind of level. Under the hood, we have a 2.4-liter i4 engine with a 9-speed automatic transmission. This thing kicks out 180 horsepower at 6,400 RPM, so not a ton of horsepower, but it's still pretty fun to drive. Your payload capacity is 1,000 pounds, and your towing capacity is 2,000 pounds, so you still should be able to haul a boat or a trailer pretty easily. It takes regular, unleaded gas and gets, okay gas mileage, at least in my opinion. 22 miles per gallon in the city, 31 on the highway with a combined rating of about 26, and that was about what I got driving around the suburbs. That fuel cap is located on the passenger side. I tend to not like that. I like it on the driver's side. And it's got a fuel tank capacity of 15.8 gallons. All right, so enough with the specs and the numbers and all that. Let's talk about what it's actually like to drive this vehicle. And I like to talk about three things: handling, acceleration, and cabin noise. So let's start with handling. I'm in a parking lot, and I'm just going to tool around for a little bit and see how this thing feels. And I gotta say, it's on a car frame, so it drives just like a car, and it is crisp when you turn the steering wheel. Honestly, I feel like I'm in something with a little bit of performance because it just hugs the road so nicely. Might be those wide tires, or it just might be because it's a Jeep, but I am loving the handling on this thing at low speeds. All right, so now let's get back on the road and let's go a little bit faster, but let's go through some curves and see how the vehicle feels. So I got it up to about 35 and I'm going around a nice bend. Oh man. I don't want to belabor this point, but it's just so nice. I feel like I could go twice the speed and I would still have control over this vehicle, which is fantastic. All right, let's pull a quick U-turn and see how this performs. Oh, that is tight. Wow. Man. Okay, so handling is definitely a big plus. This thing is really fun to drive. Now, let's talk about acceleration a bit. So I'm going at about 36 miles an hour right now. What I want to see is how fast the car will accelerate when I jam on the accelerator. So let's do that right now. It's pretty responsive, but there was still about maybe a 1 to 2 second delay. You heard the engine rev up before it gave me sort of a lurch forward of speed. Last thing I want to try with acceleration is what it's like from a dead stop. So let me get to a straightaway, something coming up right about here. And despite being in the middle of the road, there's no one around, so I'm just gonna stop. Let's hope we don't get in trouble here. And I'm gonna jam on that accelerator. First off, man, that sounds just wonderful. I love it when engines growl like that. Secondly, it's pretty fast. It's not like you don't feel the acceleration in your lower back when the car kicks forward. Some faster cars, you really feel like the car is pulling you along. You don't get that sensation, but you do get speed pretty quickly, which is nice because, you know, when I want speed, I want it to be instantly available. Yeah, if I'm at a stoplight or trying to get on the expressway, I want to know that I can go fast if I want to. And I think that's true with this vehicle. So the last thing I want to check out is cabin noise. So let's hang another sort of illegal UE right here. Doesn't look like there's anybody around. And I'm just going to drive through these curves. Ooh, didn't do a good job that time. I'm just going to drive through a couple of these curves, and I'm going to shut up. And I just want to get a feel for how the vehicle sounds. So you can definitely hear a little bit of noise from the outside, but it's not that bad. On the interstate at higher speeds, you do hear the wind kind of blowing through the vehicle pretty aggressively. But for a car at this price point, I think the noise dampening is impressive, and I'm really happy with it. All right, so now that we've taken the Cherokee for a spin, let's jump inside and take a tour of the interior. So here's the key fob. Nice shape, Jeep's logo on the back. Just a couple of buttons, unlock, lock, the trunk release, and then double tap to do the remote start feature. And then a panic button right here. I always like to press this to see what it sounds like, so let's do that right now. All right, not bad, that's a little bit aggressive. So that's the key fob. Push button start right here on the dash. Here's the steering wheel setup. A number of buttons on here. On the left-hand side, we have a directional keypad to interact with the gauge cluster screen. We also have buttons to answer and hang up phone calls and activate the virtual assistant technology. Over on the right-hand side, we have cruise controls. Just hit that button in the center to turn it on and off. And then wrapped around back, we have buttons to increase or decrease the volume. I love these. It makes it so easy to adjust things while you're driving. And you have a similar button on the other side of the steering wheel to adjust the track or tune the radio. 2 stalks on this vehicle, pretty standard stuff here, nothing worth mentioning. And then a nice looking gauge cluster. RPMs on the left, speedometer on the right, and then a big screen in the middle to show you a bunch of information about the vehicle. And you can see right now, Enterprise really needs to take this thing in for an oil change. Let me go over some of the basics. So up in the upper left-hand corner, we have the outside temperature. We have our range until empty in the upper right-hand corner, and then we have information about the vehicle on the bottom, including your fuel gauge and your odometer. And then I'm going to press this keypad right here up and down to cycle through the major menu screens. So we have an audio screen, trip counter, fuel economy. You'll see that this vehicle's gotten about 26.3 miles per gallon on average, which isn't too bad. We also have a vehicle info screen that has things like oil life, oil temperature, and then tire pressure. Or we have a digital speedometer, and this is the screen I typically leave it on. I don't know why, but I do like seeing a number right here to show me how fast I'm going, even though, I mean, you could just glance over here and see the same information. Over on the left-hand side, pretty standard buttons, door locks and window controls, mirror controls up here, a nice silver door latch with a lock, and then memory seat buttons. Down below, we have a small cutout right here. The hood release is right here, actually the hatch release, and then a dial to adjust the headlights. I'm going to keep that on auto, along with dials to adjust the lights inside the cabin and then the brightness of the display up here. Side view mirrors have auto defrost on it, and then also tucked up top. Let me pull down the window real quick. Right here is a small triangle that'll illuminate in a yellowish orange if someone is in your blind spot, and you get that same technology on the other mirror as well. So up top we have the sunglass holder, 2 lights, and then just a button on the rear view mirror to activate the automatic dimming feature. No other buttons on here of any kind, and that's because the garage door buttons are right here on the sun visor. There's 3 of them, and you can program those to connect to your garage door if you want to. And then on the back, we have a vanity mirror with lights. Below there on top of the dash, we have a small cutout, and I do mean small, with some additional storage. And let's see, so I got a standard size cell phone. Let's see if it can fit in there. Yeah, actually that works pretty well. Let me take that out, just so I don't forget it. And then below there we have our touchscreen, and this really is a touchscreen. There are no dedicated buttons really anywhere
on the system, except for the climate controls down below to interact with most of the settings in here. It's a nice screen with a darker, sort of dark theme going on. Pretty standard stuff. You have dedicated menu buttons along the bottom of the screen, and then information about the vehicle right in the middle, along with a clock and your outside temperature up top. I have it on the media screen, so I am playing things over Bluetooth, and I gotta say, it took me maybe all of 10 seconds to connect my cell, which is wonderful. I hate having to read owner's manuals before I can connect my cell to a rental. So you have radio, media, you do have a climate screen. Let's turn that climate on right now. With a lot of information about the vehicle, so you can adjust the temperature, the direction the vents are blowing, or how strong the fan is going. And then you also have heated seats and then a heated steering wheel if you like. And then interestingly, although this is the climate screen, you also have a button to activate the backup camera, and I'll show you that in a second. I just thought it was interesting that they stuck it right there. So all in all, this is a great screen, easy to see both in day and nighttime, and really easy to manipulate. Not a whole lot of apps though. So some of the cars out there, you can download all kinds of things like Spotify or news apps, but this one doesn't have a lot of that, and that's okay in my opinion, because really, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have it on my cell phone. I don't need it on this screen right here. So great screen overall. You also have a hazard button and a button to turn on and off the automatic or the park assist technology if you're not a big fan of those. Below there we have the climate controls along with the auto on off button right here. So what that means is that when you actually stop the vehicle and it's running, it's going to turn the engine off for you automatically just to save a little bit of fuel. If you don't like that, because it does take a second for the engine to kick back on when you're ready to go, you can turn that off by pressing that button right here. You also have a screen off and a mute button, and then your traction control button right there. Nice dials to control the volume and tune the radio, and it has like a rubbery plastic feeling on the top, which makes it really easy to manipulate. Hey, looks like I turned it on. And then we also have climate controls down here. What I like is that when you do adjust things, you get a pop-up window right here to show you how high the vents, the fan is blowing, or what temperature you're setting the vehicle at. And those will pop up over top of any screen you're viewing at the same time. So great controls, really easy buttons to manipulate, and I love that there's not a ton of buttons, so it is easy to find what you need pretty quickly. Below there we have a couple of cutouts. One back here that's perfect for a cell phone. Let me show you. Although, I mean, I'd be worried that I would forget it, so I usually keep mine over on the seat. Another cutout right here. This is my lens cap, and it has a rubber lining that you can pull up and throw in the dishwasher if you want to clean it. USB port, auxiliary jack, and then a power port right here. Gear shift shifts those gears really smoothly, and then you do have manual control, so if you want to, you can pop that gear shift over to the left and then shift through those gears manually if that's what you like. Although I never really use that feature. Behind there is your electronic parking brake, so you pull it up to activate it, push it down to deactivate it. Behind there we have two cup holders. As always, I'm drinking kombucha, and then another small cutout right here. Then we have our center armrest wrapped in a, it's not really that soft, it's kind of abrasive, but a leathery type material, and then you have exposed stitching, which I'm always a fan of. Although for whatever reason the white stitching is becoming gray, so it doesn't pop as much as I'd like to. And this is a newer vehicle, so keep that in mind. There's just a handle right here to open it up. You get a pretty large storage area along with USB port, another power port, and then change holder right there. And there is a felt lining down here which is removable, so you can clean it easily, I guess, if that's what you're into. Before I move on, I do want to mention the rear view camera. So when you do put the car into reverse, two things are going to happen. So first off, the rear view camera is going to activate on the center display, and you can see it's a really wide shot, so you can see all around you. A little bit grainy. I don't know if you can see the trees and the building behind me. You can't make them out super clearly, but it gets the job done. And then you also have guides, so that when you do move the steering wheel, those guides are going to also move and show you exactly where you're reversing the vehicle. So you get that. You also get a pop-up on your gauge cluster to show you how close you're getting to an object when you're reversing. So you'll get illuminated lights right here, and then a beeping noise if you get too close to hitting something. And then the third thing, I kind of lied, there's three things. The third thing that happens is that the side view mirrors automatically adjust and rotate to give you a view a little bit down so that you can see directly behind the vehicle. All right, so I jumped in the passenger side. Pretty comfortable seat, electronic controls to adjust it. The same ones you get with the driver's seat, which is not common. And then decent amount of legroom, so maybe 4 or 5 inches between my knees and that dash. And then the best thing I think over here is that you get a pretty big glove box. Now, not big in width, but really big in depth. It goes way, way, way back there, which is great because, you know, as you can see, you do accumulate some stuff in these things. So I got all my owner's manuals and registration materials right here. And there's still room for a little bit of other stuff, which is always great. All right, I jumped in the back seat. Got this passenger seat pushed back a good distance, and I still have probably, I don't know, what do you think that is? 3 or 4 inches from my knees in the back of that seat, so that's pretty good. And I feel pretty comfortable back here. It's a nice solid seat with some good cushioning. You also get pockets on the back of both seats. This is leather, so it doesn't have a ton of give, but you have kind of a foam-like material back here to give it a little bit of padding, and that's nice. You also have 2 dedicated vents on the back of the center armrest for the front seat passengers, and then down below, behind this little shelf, you have USB ports and then a 3-prong power port right there, which is just wonderful. I love having those in vehicles. There are also reading lights on the ceiling that you can activate just by pushing. And then you also have a fold-downable armrest with 2 cup holders on it. That's nice. It feels pretty solid, and I love when these are up off the seat. It just makes it so much more comfortable to use them. And then let's look at car seat anchors. So surprisingly, there's no icon on the seat. Usually there's a little button right here to show you where the car seat anchor is, but I guess we don't need that on this vehicle because the car seat anchors are fully exposed. There's a little bit of a cutout right here from the seat, but you can reach and touch the car seat anchor very easily, which is wonderful because that means it'll be super simple to install a car seat back here.
All right, so let's move to the back of the vehicle. You'll see that there's already a large amount of storage back here. Plenty of room for your normal activities like hauling around kids, grocery shopping, and trips to the hardware store. And also, on the corners of this area, kind of by the wheel wells, there's some metal rings you can use to tie things down. And also back here, there's a 12-volt DC power port that I've never really used on my vehicles, but it's always nice to know it's back here. The floor of this area is made out of a light wood material that lifts up pretty easily to reveal a spare tire and a bit of extra storage. And then if you need even more room, the rear seats do fold down really easily just by pulling on these little plastic buttons right here. It takes just a few seconds, and then you're left with a much, much bigger area so that you can haul around larger items. I gotta say, I love practical vehicles like this. It's nice to know that if you need to, you have extra space back here. All right, so that is pretty much everything end to end on the 2020 Jeep Cherokee Limited. I gotta say, I really liked this one, and I was kind of sad that I had to return it. So with that being said, you're not going to be surprised that I'm going to give this one 5 stars. There is a lot, and I do mean a lot, to love about this vehicle. It is fun to drive, has fairly updated technology, and a ton of practical storage. Now, is this the best vehicle on the road? No, absolutely not. But when I give my ratings like this, I like to preface it by saying that it's all based on price and the type of vehicle. And for an SUV that's under $30,000, I think you get quite a bit for your money, so I would be happy to drive one of these myself. Anyway, that's just my opinion. If you think differently, please leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time when I'm back with my 150th rental car review. I'll see you then.